With under a week to go, this federal election could still go either way. With the polls and the bookies, it's true that Labor remains the favourite because the Morrison government must win seats just to hold on. But if today's Newspoll is any guide, winning seats is just what the government now looks likely to do. Nationally, the vote was 49 to 51% two-party preferred, so it's still against the government. But in some key marginal seats, the seats that really matter when the race gets this tight, the government's fortunes have started to turn around. And as it stands, the coalition is now ahead. In the Townsville-based seat of Herbert, for instance, held by Labor, it's now 52-48 to the government. Presumably that's a lot to do with Labor's opposition to the Adani coal mine and Bill Shorten listing more to inner-city Victorians than the people of North Queensland who want to see jobs in their local communities. Then there's Lindsay, another Labor marginal seat out in Western Sydney. Polls today say it's in trouble, but it's another example of a seat where blue-collar workers feel let down by Labor. And here's what's starting to become clear. Despite being streets ahead in the polls for almost 3 years, pretty much from the day after the last election when Malcolm Turnbull lost 14 seats, Labor's lead in the poll hasn't yet translated into support for their policies or their leader. When it's this close now, 5 days out, you've got to say it's been the coalition's self-inflicted wounds over the past few years that's been driving voters to Labor, not any deep support for a change of government, let alone for Labor's soak the middle class tax policies. And the more people are hearing about these policies in this campaign and focusing on them as real, rather than that something is, just a mere maybe, voters are not liking what they see. Only left-wing commentators still talk about divisions inside the Liberal Party, while voters, and they're the only people that matter this close to polling day, well, they're looking at everything through the prism of what does this mean for me and my family. For all the bad polls of the last 3 years, it's worth noting that the Liberals have nearly always been ahead of Labor in primary vote terms and remain ahead now 39 to 37. So when it comes to choosing a government as opposed to just casting a vote, the coalition have nearly always been ahead of Labor, and that's to their advantage in this final week. In 2004, it was neck and neck a week out, and the Howard government ended up increasing its majority, indeed picking up the Senate for the first time in almost 2 decades. In 2010, it was 52-48 to Labor a week out, and by the end, the Gillard government had lost its majority. Indeed, in every recent election, except for Turnbull's run in 2016, the Liberals have finished stronger on polling day than they were a week out. In this final week, the big question for all the undecided voters is, who do you want to form government? If the answer is Labor, well, why not vote that way, instead of parking your vote with the Greens, who are, without a doubt, the most destructive force in Australian politics. But if the answer is Liberal, better to vote Liberal than to start with One Nation or the Palmer Party and risk getting sidetracked on preferences. Clearly, and certainly, the very worst thing you can do if you want a Liberal government rather than a Labor one is to vote independent, because in Liberal-held seats, a vote for an independent is effectively a vote for Labor. If independents hold on in Wentworth and in Indi, they're seats that should be in the coalition's column but won't be. If an independent were to win in, say, Warringah or Flinders or in Kooyong, these would be parliamentary numbers that would likely give Labor control in any hung parliament scenario. The last thing that any Liberal voter should want would be a repeat of 2010, where 2 overwhelmingly Conservative seats returned to independent MPs who then kept the Gillard government in office. Make no mistake, this is one of the most important elections in a generation, and it will go down to the wire.